welcome to another masterclass. And today's masterclass is all about the science of change and habits. And as you probably all know, I am extremely passionate about habits because everything that we do every single day, our thought patterns and the way our behaviors are all just based upon our habitual actions and thoughts. So if we can program in habits of who we want to be, it's amazing. So let's dive right in. So now the first big concept is just what is happening, the science of change in your brain. Okay, so this is what happens. Your cells receive information and then they replicate themselves. So your cells receive whatever we feed them. So if we're feeding them anxiety and cortisol and stress, they will replicate more cells of that particular emotion. So then if you're constantly feeding yourself anxiety and stress, your brain becomes so used to that, it creates more receptor sites for that emotion, so then it starts craving it more. And so then that's what makes you an anxious person. So when you do a repeated action or have a repeated emotion over and over again, it becomes a habit. So when you do the habit, you've learned, your brain produces serotonin and dopamine and endorphins, which makes it hard not to do that habit. So if you have the habit of worrying about everything all of the time, if something comes up and you don't worry about it, your brain wants to do it. So if a situation comes up and you're used to worrying all the time, when you worry, it actually creates serotonin and dopamine and it makes you feel better because you're giving your brain what it's used to. When you don't do it, so when you worry all the time and it has become a habit and you don't want to do it, your brain automatically takes that pathway because it's what's the most formed. So if you worry all the time, any situation that comes up in your life, you're typically going to worry because those are the neural pathways that you've created in your brain. So that's where your brain automatically goes. So to create new mental habits, we need to think a different way so many times to create that path of, okay, now this is what we're going to take when we see situations, not this way. Okay, so this is what happens in your brain. When you have a bad habit or an addiction or a thinking pattern, when you do it, like I said, it produces serotonin and endorphins, which makes it hard to stop. So I think many of us can relate to this. Checking your phone. When you scroll through Facebook, scroll through Instagram, every time you get that little hit and you do it 20,000 times a day, every time you're doing it, it's actually releasing serotonin and dopamine in your brain. So it feels good. That's why it feels good to do it. That's why you think it's taking away stress, or that's why you do it so much, because it's actually releasing dopamine in your brain, which is why we get addicted to doing it. So just know that for checking your phone. So then when you stop that habit or way of thinking, your body goes through this transition phase when your cells are literally withdrawing from what you're not giving them what they're used to. So if you just try to stop looking at your phone, if you've been addicted to looking at it, you're going to feel a little anxious and you're going to want to look at it simply because you're going through withdrawal from feeding your body that so much. It's what that's expecting. And so now you're taking that away, so it's going to feel weird. The thing is, the feeling is what gets people tripped up. So that feeling, when you're feeling anxious and that kind of withdrawal from whatever you're trying to stop doing, people assign a meaning to that of, oh, this is hard, this is not worth it, I don't want to do this, I don't really have to do this, it's not really that bad what I'm doing. Just because it feels so much comfortable to go back into their old way of thinking or their old habits. But if you can assign a new meaning to that feeling of withdrawal and kind of anxiousness of whatever you're stopping, of, oh, this is actually my body changing. This is cells of that emotion dying. This is neural pathways of that bad addiction or thinking pattern dying. It's a good thing that I feel this way. I'm not going to feel this way forever. We just have to change our perception of that feeling we get when we try to start a new habit. Because you are creating new neural pathways when you do that. So feeling that resistance is actually a good thing. And if you can assign a positive meaning to that, then you can become unstoppable and rewire your brain. Okay, so habit, lifestyle. So in programming habits, like I said, habits are mindsets or actions. So you can choose the type of person you want to be and align your thoughts and actions with that. So you can cultivate any characteristic or habit that you want to be and wire it into your biology. So it becomes a part of who you naturally are without having to think about it. So your brain is always looking to put as many things on autopilot as possible. So many of the habits and mindsets that are on autopilot for us are not that helpful. So for example, worrying all the time, scrolling through our phones all the time, they're just things we do automatically without thinking about it. So we want to change that. So what creates habits is intense focus plus repetition is what creates habit and who you are. So whatever you intensely focus on and do over and over again is what's going to create who you are. So a lot of people try to change multiple things at once, which is a bad idea because you need intense focus, and when you try to do too many things at once, you don't stick with it. So you need to wire one thing in until it becomes automatic and then start a new thing. Okay, so clarity and vision. So like I said before, your life is determined by a clear vision you have set up. So your subconscious mind sharply focuses your emotional energy to create thoughts, ideas, and actions that align with your vision. So if you don't have a vision, then your brain and you're just going to be wiring aimlessly kind of through life. So you need to set a vision of what you're working on, what you want your life to be, what you want your day to look like, so you can allow your brain and everything to go to work for you to help you carry that out. Okay, so have you set a vision for your life of what are your values? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want to feel every day? What is your purpose? What do you want to accomplish in life? How do you want others to feel around you? Have you ever thought about that kind of thing? Because it's only when we actually intentionally choose and stop to think about these things that create what we want. So if you haven't set your clear intentions and visions, then the intentions and visions of the world will take over. And those are not very life-giving. They're usually to prove my worth to others, to make sure no one gets upset or angry, and everything stays comfortable. So like all of these things could be driving you without you knowing it. So you have to kind of override whatever the world's intentions are and set your clear goals of who you are, what you're here for, what you want to do, and how you want to feel, and what kind of person you want to be, and what thoughts and habits do you need to have to become that person. So to influence change, you need to gain control and cooperation with your subconscious mind, which I said needs a vision. So your energy flows where you have the most clarity. So without clarity, your energy is just going to be all over the place. You'll be so excited about one thing one day, and then you'll just feel lost and depressed the next day. So just setting this clear vision and kind of an eternal, big picture perspective is huge, huge, huge. Okay, so we know that neuroplasticity is the scientific discovery proving that you can physically change your brains through your thoughts and actions. So what that means is you can wire out pathways and you can physically create new pathways and destroy old ones. You can wire out toxic beliefs and habits and thoughts and wire in good habits, truths, and thinking patterns. So you can become free of toxic thinking, of toxic habits, of beliefs, and even trauma. So by changing the way you think and changing your actions, you are actually physically changing the structures in your brain which drive your identity and your behaviors, which is amazing. So what we want to do is program it into our mind, so not doing that action becomes harder than actually doing it. So whatever you want to be, whatever you want to do, you can program it into your biology so it becomes a part of who you naturally are without even having to think about it. So imagine if you were just naturally having an abundant mindset, seeing the best in everything about yourself, about your life. Obviously, healthy habits every day that are just easy, you don't have to struggle with. You can do all of that and make it part of who you naturally are. So quickly, I will go over how you do that in Habits 101. So I can do a whole class on willpower, but right now we'll just talk about kind of the biggest things. So your willpower is what's the biggest determining factor of your success and happiness and productivity in life. Your ability to do what you say you're going to do and stick with something throughout the whole day and choose habits and stick with them. So the thing is it's willpower. You only have a certain amount every day. Making lots of decisions in a day, checking social media, multitasking, all of these things actually drain your willpower, which is why by the end of the day, we don't make the best decisions often, and especially late at night, we definitely don't make the best decisions. It's because our willpower is literally drained. So the thing, we have to try to be conscious every day about conserving our willpower as much as possible. And we do that by creating habits to put as many things on autopilot as necessary so we're not having to use our willpower every day. So the more you have to think about choosing to be healthy or present or trying to think positive, by the end of the day you'll feel exhausted because you've used so much willpower to do that. So again, we need to be able to put it on automatic for you to do that. So the goal is so you create habits so you don't have to use willpower. So you can put as many things on autopilot as possible. So step 1 in mastering habits. Master your physiologically first. Your physiologically first. So physiologically first. So that what that means is great habits to start with are eating enough food, drinking enough water, exercising, sleep, and working on your kind of mindset, because these are the fundamental habits that will accelerate any area of your life. So those are the best to start with. Like I said, which is called a keystone habit. So you need to pick your keystone habit. So what's one thing that if you did it would have the biggest impact on every other area of your life? Which again, a lot of that is sleep, nutrition, and mindset. And what is one thing you could possibly stop doing that would make the biggest impact of your life? If you think about those two things, then you need to create your why. So why do you even want to do that? If you don't have a strong why behind why you're making a habit, then you're not going to stick with it. So you actually need to write down your why, and anytime you feel like you don't want to do it anymore, you need to return to that why to remember why you're doing it to actually have it stick. So step 4, you have to do it daily. You can't just do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, once a week. That makes it incredibly, incredibly hard. If you want to get it wired in fast, you have got to do it and be committed to it every day. Okay, and so then you kind of have to embrace the process like we were talking about. So the first 10 days that you try to create a habit or stop a habit, they're going to seem almost unbearable. Like, well, you're going to have thoughts of, why am I even doing this? I don't have to do this. Like, what's the point of doing this anyway? Oh, I can skip a day. I'll start again tomorrow. You're going to have possibly all of those thoughts, but that's just what I said. That's the feeling of your cells withdrawing. It's the feeling of pruning synaptic connections in your brain and creating new ones. So you're just going to have to know that's going to happen. But then the next 10 days, then you'll start to feel more comfortable, and then it'll just kind of become part of what you do. And then the next 10 days, you'll feel unstoppable. So you'll actually begin to see the benefits from your habit and see that it's actually changing your life. So if you can push through that time that doesn't feel that great at the beginning, you will have an incredible, you'll make habits, and it'll be easy for you. So that next, then you have to set up triggers. So without daily triggers, you're not going to remember to do it. So you need to make it as easy for yourself as possible. And you do that by setting up triggers throughout the day. So an example could be set a timer on your phone for 3 times a day that reminds you to do whatever you're focusing on. I like to do it right when I wake up, before lunch, and right at bed, just to remember what I'm working on. Just set up any kind of trigger you can. If it's working out, put workout clothes out. Anything you can to physically see during the day to remind you to do it is huge. So basically, that is your Habits 101. So the science of change. Remember, your life is made up of your habits. What you think about, what you do each day creates your reality. And if you can make anything you want on automatic, what would you choose? So I have created a Transformation 30 journal. And what this journal is it creates clarity, vision, focus, and lasting change for you. So what it is, it helps you create habits. So each month, you're going to decide what habit do you want to wire in, and what mindset do you want to wire in for the month. And which is amazing because you can, if you think about, if you do this every month, by the end of the year, you can have so many new incredible mindsets and habits that are just a part of who you naturally are without even having to think about it, which is amazing. So what mindset do you want for the month? What habit do you want for the month? And then every day it kind of gives you just a checklist of what did you do that habit, and then how did you nourish your mind that day? How did you nourish your body? Were you grateful for that day? And then different kind of affirmations and decrees to say out loud to change your beliefs. And so it's just kind of a guide and an outline to help you create these life-changing habits that actually stick. What your thoughts and your actions that you do every day make up your reality, and that you can program in and wire in any habit and any mindset that you want. If you focus and do it daily with intention for 1 to 3 months, depending on what it is, you can make it a part of who you are naturally without having to think about it. If you can push through that little time of change where it feels uncomfortable, you will be unstoppable.